Good morning, lovelies. Welcome to another Candid Kandy. This one is fairly personal for me. Today we are going to discuss having a partner that doesn't want you sexually. And by that I mean it could either be someone that doesn't find you attractive anymore, is asexual, or someone who just doesn't have the same drive that you have, and so you get turned down a lot. And I think the classic joke is that men have a higher sex drive and women are always saying they have a headache and turning them down. And I have found that that is not the case. I'm going to use my marriage as a example because it's really the only long-term relationship I've ever had. And this was a huge part of my marriage. Now, I'm going to preface that by saying I am not attacking Roger. Roger and I have had multiple discussions about this. He knows this was an issue. We are very open and communicative in our relationship, and it just wasn't something that we could come together on. Literally. So, in my experience, even at the beginning of our relationship, sex just wasn't a huge thing. And I think it was, number one, I was uncomfortable in my body at that age. I was only like 22 years old. I wasn't like, how do I say this? I had been used by people, and so I was kind of guarded at the time that I met Roger. And so him not being into sex that much was not a red flag for me. It just was kind of nice that we could cuddle on the couch and he didn't want to bang the whole time. And so at first I kind of liked it. But as our marriage got further and further along, it became apparent that sex was not something that he was interested in. And I would ask to start something, or I would start something, and he would say he was tired, or he didn't feel like it, or he hadn't showered, or, you know, things like that that are the typical excuses. And so I kept getting rejected. And it was really, like, at first I was like, oh, okay, you know, he works really hard. Especially at the time where I first started noticing this. So at the time that it first started, that I first started like paying attention to it really, he was working 12-hour days. His mom had been really sick. She, I haven't told this story on the channel, but his mom's colon burst. And we thought we had lost her, and then she was in a coma for a while, and then she went to a nursing home, and then she moved in with us. And I can do a whole story time on that if you guys want to, how we took care of her and stuff. And so it was all right around that time that I started noticing things, and I talked to him about it. I was like, hey, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, I'm just really tired. You know, I'm just not up to it. I was like, okay. And so that went on for like a year or longer, and we just got caught up in life, and, you know, I guess I just chalked it up to, you know, things were happening. We had so much going on, and I was persistent, I would say. Once a month or so I would try to start something, and he'd say he was tired or something else, and, you know, it just kept getting a longer time and a longer time. And we had a pretty big discussion about it. I was like, hey, like, this is important to me, that we are intimate together, and it makes me feel loved and it makes me feel wanted, and I kind of need that. And so things would be okay for, you know, maybe a week or so, and then the cycle would start over. And so dealing with a partner who isn't, to me, in my head, it was like, well, he's not attracted to me. I'm ugly. I'm too fat for him. I'm ugly. Even though I was the same size as when we got married, or at that time, maybe a little bit more. And I felt disgusting. And that reflected in how I was treating myself. At that time, I never wore makeup. Before I met Roger, I probably had worn makeup like 3 times in my entire life. Like, I think my aunt did my makeup for a dance, and then I had my makeup professionally done for another dance, and my cousin did my makeup for my wedding. I never wore makeup at all. And so I continued to not wear makeup, and then my clothes changed, and I was only wearing like jeans and t-shirts, or stretch pants and t-shirts. And then I stopped caring about what I was eating and started to put weight back on. And this was after my gastric bypass surgery. So this was about 3 or 4 years after my gastric bypass surgery. And so I had learned ways to get around the pouch. I started to put weight back on. And that made me feel even more disgusting. But it was a cycle of feeling unloved and unwanted, and continuing to not care about myself because the person that I thought should care about me most didn't care about me. Or so I thought. And so I dealt with that in a really terrible way. I self-sabotaged, basically. And so after a while, we had another discussion about it. I threatened to leave, and things still didn't change. And I'm really stubborn and bullheaded. So I stuck around for a long time feeling completely unwanted and unloved and unneeded. And it really messed up my self-esteem. And so the person that you see now is not the person I was 5 years ago. I fought a lot for myself. And so when I was diagnosed pre-diabetic and I started on my weight loss journey, my confidence started to get better. And when I lost my first 50 pounds, I bought myself a gym membership and gym shoes and a Fitbit. And then when I had lost 75 pounds, when I got to the 75 pound mark, I allowed myself to buy myself some clothes. And then when I got to the 100 pound mark, I decided that I wanted to start wearing makeup. And like, I was so focused on like eating right and working out that now I wanted to focus on my outer appearance, like my clothes and my makeup. And so I started wearing makeup, and I started feeling good about myself and focusing more on myself than on what I thought were his thoughts on me. And that's how I dealt with the rejection, basically. I took it upon myself to make myself feel better instead of relying on someone's sexual attraction to me to be my self-worth. And sorry guys, it's a really liberating feeling to realize that you don't need someone else's approval, and you don't need someone else's, they may be going through some thing in their head that they don't want to talk to you about, which if it's your partner, they should be able to talk to you about. But we all have inner struggles, and if we can't help the partner that we have and have these honest and frank discussions with them, then what are we doing with that person? Your partner should be the person that you can go to for anything, that you can talk to about anything. That should be your number one confidant. And, you know, have these discussions. I guess that's really where the focus is for me, is to be able to have honest and open discussions. And if the behavior that is hurting you continues, then you really need to think about, is this the right place for you? And it took me a lot of years. Roger and I were together for a long time, 13, 14 years. And it's funny because I was talking to him on the phone yesterday. And in fact, okay, so it started on Saturday. He called to check in with me, and my friend Brittany was in the room, and, you know, him and I just chit-chatted for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I hung up, and she goes, "You guys are so cute." And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You have the greatest friendship, and it's so good to see that even though you guys aren't together, that like you have this really close relationship." And it's true. He really is my best friend. And I was talking to him yesterday, and I told him that, and he goes, "Well, we really care about each other and we love each other. We're just not good together." And it's true. There were just certain facets of a relationship that we couldn't connect on. And sex being one of them, and it being important for me and not important for him. And so that was a really big gap of incompatibility that we just couldn't get over. And so, you know, it's so great to have him in my life, and to have him be able to be honest with me and me be honest with him, and us to still share such a special bond, and to still have my best friend. And so even though we couldn't get over this you know, gap of me being rejected and feeling awful about myself, we are still able to be friends because we had these frank and honest discussions. And so I urge you that if you're in a relationship and you're feeling this way, to have those open and honest discussions with your partner, because I think that's the only way to get past something like this. Okay, I just hit 8 o'clock on my thing, and I'm sitting outside of my work crying. So that's a great start to my Monday. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful, and I hope that my story can, you know, encourage you to take control of your own self-worth. All right, guys, I love you, and I love myself, and I will talk to you guys soon.